In this programme, I'm talking to the Managing Director of the Genuine Dining Company, Tim Axe. The GDC is a catering company with the ethos at its heart of the best people, serving the best food, having the most fun. The GDC spans over 70 locations with 500 staff and has been voted in the top 1,000 companies to inspire Britain. I really hope you enjoy the content. Tim, thank you for joining me.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So you're the Managing Director of the Genuine Dining Company.
That's right.
Can you tell us a bit about what the Genuine Dining Company does?
Yeah, so Genuine Dining Company has been around for 12 years and fundamentally we feed people at work.
Yep.
So we have a number of different partners in the corporate space predominantly who, particularly after lockdown, have tried to find different ways of creating experiences in the workplace. A, to entice people back to work, but B, to give a differentiation to their employment offer to their people. So we see food and everything that sits around food and drink as a really integral part of that. So we work closely with property directors, facilities directors, HR professionals about a strategy on what food and beverage can do to, bring that unique experience to their workplace.
Yeah. And how many sort of restaurants, cafes have you got?
Across the country, we have about 70. We are predominantly London-based, where about 60% of our business is. And they range from coffee bars in isolation to big staff restaurants, hospitality suites, fine dining, but all led around personal interaction with people. So it's very a people-led business.
Is there like a flagship premises that ultimately represents the main part of what you do, or are they all totally different and bespoke to the properties?
Generally speaking, we are guests in our partners' homes.
Yeah.
So, for example, this morning we're in the Office Group Cafe in Whitechapel. This is their building, it's their space, and we are invited to operate in their business. So everyone is unique. We're very proud of that, actually. It makes operating it's so difficult in many ways because everyone's unique and different. Yeah. But that is the joy of it, because you can really understand what each individual customer base and each individual client need from their food services and then create something bespoke for them.
That's cool. So you're effectively, as you say, it could be that they want more orientated around the croissants and the cafe side, and other places will want more of a restaurant dining.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool.
And I think before COVID, the big C, and lockdown, our industry was very different, actually.
Yeah.
It had become a place where we are seeing far more now. Experience is far more important than anything else.
Yes.
And it's that experience that is consistent across all of the business, I'd say now.
Yeah, interesting. So you personally, have you always been in the catering industry and the hospitality industry? Is that something you've always found yourself in?
Yeah, my first job was in a fish and chip shop, and I haven't really looked back. That was at 13 years old. I went to university to study business management and hospitality, but I was always working in a restaurant, and finished university, went back to the restaurant, and it was a New Year's Eve 18 years ago. I was locking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I realised I was never going to find a girlfriend if I carried on working split shifts. So I was introduced to this wonderful world of it was known as contract catering then, and I did various different roles, grew up within different businesses, and I'm fortunate enough now to lead GDC in the corporate space, which is, it's a brilliant place to be.
Oh, that's brilliant. And how long have you been with GDC?
I've been here just over a year, which was quite deliberate. I worked for the same company broadly for my entire career, and then decided to make a bit of a change a year ago. I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to be more creative in our sector and to create more experiences. Yeah. And I think when you are a smaller, younger, more nimble business, you're more able to do that, which is what GDC is, and I absolutely love it, funnily enough.
I can tell. And when you go on the website, and coming here today, you can see there's a real fun element. There's a real sense of enjoyment. The staff coming in, they're instantly really big greeting each other and happy at 7 in the morning. Is that something that was already existing? Was that something you brought to the company? Because that's clearly really needed and apparent on the back of, as you mentioned, lockdown and so on.
Well, no, I think GDC has always been a people business. And so I can't take any credit for that really. But what I do like is that, particularly now, with modern technology and people have become so familiar with ordering things on their phones through lockdown, actually hospitality more now than ever has to be about encouraging people to use their personalities to create experiences so that everybody who walks through the door has, the best hello they can possibly have, the best service they could possibly have. And actually it's part of their day. That is a reason for coming to the workplace. It's how people make you feel coming to the workplace. So I'm glad you said that, because showing your personality, and we encourage that, is really important to creating that whole experience.
Yeah, and it does, honestly does show.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
It's good to hear.
So in terms of staff, how many staff has the GDC company got?
Across the different businesses, we've got about 550.
Okay. So there's an element of the training that goes into that to very much be positive mindset. So how does that happen? Is it external? Or is that very much kind of coming from you and the management to support them with that?
Well, we have some unbelievable people in our sort of support team whose role it is to inspire people as well as train people. And we fundamentally break training down into 3 different levels. We've got our sort of compliance level, because in our world, obviously, from a food safety, health and safety, you have to do that. We have a skills level, which is about encouraging people to try new things in their role, be that latte art and baristas or butchery courses in the kitchen. And then we've got aspirational training. So our exec chef, who is just an absolute superstar, he will then take personal accountability of individuals who've shown a willing and desire and ability to go and do stages in Michelin-star restaurants, etc. So it's a very personalised approach to training and development, and I think part of that in all of us is giving people the confidence to express their own personality. And we live in such a diverse world, which we absolutely love reflecting within our workforce, because we should be celebrating the brilliant people who are out there, and it's all about those personalities that create that hospitality experience.
So we're sitting here in one of your restaurant or cafes,
Yeah.
and it's fully liveried with Jack.
Yeah.
Just ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love you to tell me how this has come together.
Well, so I've known Danny Gray nearly all of my life. We went to school together, and we've seen each other out, having finished school, obviously, and we've kept in touch. And about 3 months into my tenure at GDC, our senior team was sat around thinking, actually, our business has gone from 0 to 60 miles an hour really, really quickly. And for an incredible team of people to have been in lockdown for 2 years, have been on furlough, to have the stress of all of that, and then to come back in smaller teams, leaner teams, and then be expected to go at 100 miles an hour again. We were concerned about the mental welfare of our guys, and moreover, how could we provide the support for our entire business, because we'd all been through it as well, and we were all acutely aware of our own mental health.
Yes.
And so I reached out to Danny, and we got talking about this Jack project, and it just sounded amazing as something we could roll out to our business and to our people to give them that support. However, after a few months of conversations, I think Danny and I were on the phone, and we sort of said, "Oh, should we have a chat? Let's meet for a coffee." And all of a sudden, it's like, well, in our business, we are so fortunate to be serving, 1.5 million cups of coffee a year or something like that. And actually, coffee is the medium for people to get together and have a chat. So actually, if you're going to break the stigma of mental health by having conversations, why would we not encourage it to be done over coffee? And so, interestingly, the idea of Jack Coffee was born, and I then had to work really hard to keep Danny's enthusiasm in check, as you're probably aware. But it was amazing, because we spoke to, the first people we spoke to were our partners at the Office Group, and said, we've got this idea about Jack Coffee. It's with a guy called Danny Gray, and they said, "It's Danny Gray. He's the War Paint for Men chap." And we said, yeah. And he said, I absolutely adore what he's trying to do. So yeah, absolutely, let's have a conversation. Shall we grab a coffee? And so the office group have been so incredibly supportive of what Jack is trying to achieve. And so you'll look around this coffee shop. It is, I think it's just absolutely amazing. I'm so proud of what the guys have done. And it's all down to the partnership between the office group, Jack, and to a lesser extent GDC, because we run it from a food and beverage perspective, but it's the office group who kindly allowed the Jack coffee vision to come to life. So no, it's absolutely brilliant.
And for me in business, these sorts of things can take a while to come together, but I seem to remember what seems like very recently talking to Danny and how excited he was about this potentially happening, to then it happening pre-launch, which was back in November.
Yeah.
So you guys really got together and made that happen quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is one, very admirable, and two, all parties combined to make sure this all happened. Was that difficult to achieve?
Do you know what? It really wasn't, and ultimately it did become tight time frames. We talked about it for a long time, but then obviously we had the partnership discussions and all that good stuff. So it was done in about 7.5 weeks in total. But I think when you've got all three parties who are totally vested in the ambition and the end goal, it actually was relatively straightforward. I mean, it's fortunate from our perspective, we are an established food and beverage business. And so we were able to roll out, working with coffee partners to create a new Jack Coffee brand, and working with suppliers and our chef team to create new food concepts that would, meet the demand of this particular part of London. So yeah, it was.
And is there a plan to do more? So can you roll this Jack concept out into other premises?
Well, it's interesting because I don't think there is a corporate organisation at the moment who is not concerned about breaking the stigma attached to the conversation about mental health. And so we have a number of partners that we work with and have worked with for many years, have great relationships with, and we have had conversations with them. In fact, we're having some more today about Jack Coffee and the benefit that it could deliver their entire sort of people strategy. And not one of them has said, no, thank you, so far. So I think we will continue working with our existing customer base to help spread the message and the vision of Jack in general through coffee, and then see where it takes us.
That's awesome. Following that trend, have you, as a company, seen any differences in trend from pre-COVID and lockdowns to post?
Yeah.
You mentioned how you've shifted and changed, but have you actually noticed a different trend in what people are doing when they come into the premises and how they're interacting?
Yeah. I think in the first 6, 7, 8 months of this year, which is after the last lockdown, we were very nervous that we were going to get into this Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday culture, and therefore revenues would be 60%, therefore we'd have to make changes to the way we operate the business. And to a certain extent that was true at the start of the year. However, we're 100% seeing that shift. Whilst people are coming in less, when they are coming into the workplace, or indeed London, they want to enjoy it. They want to have an experience, and they have, people are prepared to pay more for that or spend more, spend on a more regular basis. And so I think it is more experiential, therefore. It needs to have more personality, the services we offer. And we continue to try and do that every day.
Yeah.
But in terms of business volume, it's pretty consistent. We're a bigger business now than we were pre-COVID, which is amazing. And a large part of that is we are working with partners who want to create those experiences that draw people back into the workplace. And long may that continue.
Totally. It's only a positive, right, if people are coming together and talking. And a bit like we are now, talking about the business side of it. You personally, in terms of mental health, how's that been from an impact point of view through your life, people around you, yourself? Have you got a journey there that you can elaborate?
Yeah, I have. Only in the sense that, well, I'm a very fortunate individual. I'm very proud and very traditional bloke in that sense, in that mental health is never something that I really bought into or indeed believed in, or all that traditional sort of male proud mindset, if you like.
Man up.
Absolutely, man up, get on with it. And I think particularly when you have family and you're a senior in a business, that probably gets a bit worse. However, the conversations around Jack, and it's not necessarily about my individual discussions on different topics of mental health and things that happen to me, but it's the idea of conversation around it that has completely changed the way I feel about A, mental health, B, about the way I treat myself as a person, the time I give myself, the ability to stop and think and have a conversation, not necessarily about a topic, but just chatting, like you and I are doing. Danny was the first person to show me the benefit of that, because we had several conversations about his experiences and my experiences, and I think it's that which has really benefited me, the fact that we should be having a conversation.
I can parallel that. We wouldn't be talking in this setup right now if it wasn't for Danny influencing myself and leading to just how much it benefits you just opening up and talking about it and learning from other people.
Absolutely.
Rather than just potentially feeling isolated or bottling it up inside.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think just having a chat, it doesn't need to be about mental, it doesn't need to be about anything, but just sitting and chatting about normal stuff. We now do it with several clients. Actually, it's their initiative more than ours.
Yes.
Just about men, in my case, sitting down and just having a conversation. Doesn't need to be about anything. It could be about something if you want it to be, but it's creating those safe spaces for those traditional blokes to feel comfortable having a chat.
Yeah, totally good. And it's often the men, it's the blokes, and just as you said, that kind of man up and just get on with it. Yeah. It's that for me, I think Jack is really helping. The mental health benefits of talking and asking questions. By definition, you're curious. You're trying to find out more. You're asking questions to find an answer, which is taking an action. Yeah. And it's the stats and the things I found out through Danny and Jack, where men are concerned. It's awesome that you're then providing something like this, where people can come together and actually grow the exposure as well. Yeah, so awesome. Can you see other businesses, in any number of different industries? Can you see how other businesses could potentially help Jack in doing something like what you've done, where you just put your energy and thoughts into something that can add value?
Well, for us, and for me personally, but I know on behalf of GDC, this isn't necessarily an initiative to benefit GDC. It was initially to support our teams, and we share that absolutely. Yep. But we have a very valuable vehicle, we felt, to be able to spread the Jack name, brand and message, which was coffee. Yes. And so we absolutely did that, and will continue to do it, because I think it's a really important thing to do. Yeah. And actually, it's quite cool. He's making mental health cool because he's a cool guy. But if are there any other corporate or indeed partnerships that could spread that message? Equally, of course there are. There are hundreds, if not thousands.
Hopefully you're inspiring that, right?
On a very small level, maybe. That's very kind of you. But there are. It's just about getting the message out there, and starting those initial conversations, because it's life-changing, it's amazing.
Being in the hospitality industry, how did COVID affect GDC?
Well, it was a nightmare. The whole hospitality industry, as we all know, was massively affected, but when overnight, you lose 95% of your revenue. And the thing is, no one quite knew how long it was going to go on for. And so you're sitting there wondering how to support all the brilliant people that you've spent so many years developing and have personal relationships with, wondering what to do with them if the world isn't going to come back anytime soon. So it was a very, very, very stressful time for everybody in the hospitality industry. Thank goodness for Rishi Sunak coming out and having the furlough scheme that saved hospitality. However, I would add that we came through it as a hospitality industry. There were several casualties who didn't deserve to be casualties. But we've had a good, strong year, relatively speaking, I would say, hospitality industry. However, it's an even worse time now, because there is no support for hospitality. Within our sector, in the workplace, we are pretty well insulated because we work with partners and we're guests in their home, but when you're operating on the high street with cost of living crisis and energy rises, et cetera, and no support coming, I think we're going to see an even tougher time for the hospitality sector in 2023.
Yeah.
And therefore, initiatives like Jack and the fact we can share them in hospitality. And there are also some brilliant hospitality support systems in place. Hospitality Action, which is a charity operating in our sector, which we try and support as much as possible because they were fundamental to supporting our guys during lockdown. I think they're going to be even more important into next year because it's going to be a really tough place to be.
I was going to ask you about next year. I mean, a lot of what I do in business is property related, which is terrifying right now with interest rates and so on, but it affects all of us, right?
Of course. I mean,
have you got any plans to try and mitigate or kind of buffer against what could be a tough year next year and people just effectively not spending as much money as they may have done previously?
I mean, the pressures are on us. People not spending the money is a pressure, but the bigger pressure are cost pressures. So food price inflation has been incredible this year, at least double digit, if not into 18, 19, 20%. That's a huge pressure. And there's not a lot you can do about it. You can be clever with where you buy, but ultimately we are a British business trying to support local suppliers. And so you can't just pull the rug from beneath them either. So that's a pressure. Recruitment has been a pressure all year, but actually finding the best people that celebrate our values and being able to afford them, that's also a pressure. But I think in our world, that's just about having constant conversation, funny enough, because you have to be real about the issues, the challenges, work with your partners on, can we sustain the pressure that they present, or do we need to make some changes? Generally speaking, across our business, our partners are hugely supportive, in it for the long haul, and so fingers crossed we should weather the storm of next year, but it will be a challenge.
No, it feels like it. And paralleling what you just said and the core values, which is best people, best food, and have fun. Finding people. I know a number of people in hospitality have been really struggling with staff. So you mentioned trying to find the right people. Has that been as much of a challenge as I know it has been for some other people in that industry?
It was a challenge at the start of the year because it was fast-paced and we needed lots of people very quickly, but we were lucky enough to be able to re-employ lots of people that we had either had to move into other parts of the business or unfortunately let go. So that helped at the start of the year. But I think any hospitality, we have tried within hospitality to really celebrate our culture, particularly the best people, most fun element, because the best food comes from those two working. And so to create a culture whereby people can be themselves, really enjoy themselves at work, get good training and development. Actually, we don't have a single senior vacancy at the moment across the business in GMs and head chefs, etc., which is, a pretty nice stat to know. And I think that is largely due to the culture and the fact that, you are only one phone call away from an owner of the business, and that's true of everybody.
Yes.
And as long as we continue living by those values, hopefully we'll still be an employer choice.
So from a personal point of view, do you find yourself reading self-development and motivational books and listening to the podcasts that are kind of always helping you develop and motivate yourself?
I have always loved the idea of someone who read lots of motivational and business books. I just don't do it. And I'd like to say it's that I don't have any time. I do have time. I've just never have really had the inclination to sit down and read a business book. I read books that make me laugh and read books that are so different to my normal world, and just so I enjoy that. I do listen to a couple of podcasts religiously. The High Performance podcast is one with Jake Humphreys, who I know is involved with Jack and was a big supporter of Danny. And I think that's because they are really interesting stories about a variety of different topics.
Lived experiences often as well, which again resonates with Jack. I love the High Performance podcast. It's raw, isn't it? It's a proper conversation with people that are giving information you just simply wouldn't have had.
No, absolutely. I think the thing for me, my motivation in life is people and interaction with people. I think that's why I love hospitality so much.
Yes. And
so listening to things like High Performance, where you get to know people through a podcast and their lived experiences, I think that's probably why I read less books and listen to more podcasts like that.
So you mentioned you've got great support within. within the company, 500 odd staff.
Yeah.
So if somebody potentially is, suffering with their own mental health, of course, there's Jack and there's external scenarios they can go to, but can they actually come to within GDC and get help?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is an evolving piece, and I actually hope that mental health first aid will become a legislative thing in our sector, because I think it's as important as first aid, which is obviously legislative. But so our head of people has a network of mental health first aiders in our business now who have been trained. In fact, within the Jack coffee shops, all of the baristas are mental health first trained. And that's how much we value the opportunity to be able to have that conversation. And it's not just with, an HR director, because that feels scary. It's with a network of guys and girls on the ground who, are trained to be able to support people. However, I think it's also really important that they have then immediate access to specialist help, which is where we link into Hospitality Action, who are just outstanding in what they do.
That's brilliant. Well, Tim, it's been inspiring and
Yes.
thoroughly enjoyable to talk
Thank
to
you
you
so much.
and find out so much about it. And in terms of the Jack Cafe, I hope to see more of these because it's awesome.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you so much indeed.
Cheers.
Good to see you. Thank you.